Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Vicente.
And this is Izzy.
And welcome back to the IV Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now into the Tom Holland trilogy. And Izzy, boy, did Tom Holland do an amazing job with this trilogy.
Yeah, he did. It's the first movie that I saw him in, and he did an amazing job.
Yep, after the failure that was the Amazing Spider-Man franchise caused by Sony, not by Mark Webb, not by Andrew Garfield, Marvel finally got the rights to Spider-Man, kind of partially. Sony and Marvel kind of share them, but I remember when this was announced back in 2015, I want to say around February of 2015, I was excited. I literally saw the news right before I went to bed, and I was just so happy. But we wouldn't know when Spider-Man would appear, and then he finally made his on-screen appearance with the whole MCU cast in Captain America Civil War. And now the question was, who was going to play Spider-Man? Who would be the right man for the job? And granted, I kind of do get annoyed that they went back with high school Peter Parker, but it makes sense for the story origin. I know the last two contestants were Asa Butterfield and Tom Holland, and I'm not going to lie, I am so glad Tom Holland got the part because I don't know who else could have been Spider-Man for this particular universe.
Yeah, I think their choice of going with Tom Holland was great. He plays the part so well. I think I don't want to say he hits every mark because it's hard to say that with an actor, but he hits almost every one.
Oh yeah, and what I love about this trilogy is that it has that high school vibe, and I love that. Like the first movie is very, very Breakfast Club inspired. Whereas the second movie kind of feels like a summer vacation movie, and the third movie, it's kind of its own thing. But you can't deny that they did a pretty good job with making some of these actors actually teenagers. Because that was the one thing I didn't like about the Tobey Maguire trilogy and Andrew Garfield duology is that those high schoolers did look like adults. And granted, everyone looks different as time goes on, but you can tell, even as a kid, I knew those were just straight up adults.
Yeah, they actually felt like kids, and I felt like they acted like kids and have like the quirks of kids. It wasn't like adults in a high school setting.
Yeah, I think Tom Holland was 18 when he first appeared as Spider-Man in Civil War, which is hella cool, yeah. And then we get Michael Keatin as the Vulture, and man, let me tell you, that was a perfect first villain with a perfect first actor. And funny enough, Michael Keaton wasn't actually going to be Vulture. He dropped out because of scheduling issues. But then rumor has it that he didn't really believe in Tom Holland's acting ability. And then he saw Civil War. Like I said, rumor has it he saw Civil War and he went back on board. He's like, oh no, yeah, I want to do a movie with that guy.
And I'm so glad he did.
Oh yeah, and granted, I kind of do have my problems with the beginning of Spider-Man and the MCU, which I'll talk about my negatives. But so far, Izzy, what would you rate this movie out of the whole scaling?
Out of the whole scaling, I think out of 10, I think I would give it probably like an 8.5.
Oh yeah, I give this movie like an 8.9 out of 10. It's good. Granted, I still think the original first movie is still my favorite when it comes to origin story. But this one was pretty good. Like I said, I just appreciate that it actually has a high school vibe, not just, 30-year-olds just trying to act like teenagers, And like I said, very, very inspired by a lot of 80s high school movies like 16 Candles and Breakfast Club.
So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. All right. So, starting off with our first positive, Tom Holland as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Izzy, you take this.
So, for Tom Holland as Peter Parker and Spider-Man, I think he plays the part so well. He has the quirkiness, he has the jokes, and he has the nerdiness. And I think they chose a great actor for Flash as well, where it's not like the old time Wolverine, but like it's kind of like what we would see in this generation.
Yeah.
And I think it's great.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the whole cast in our second positive, but Tom Holland as Spider-Man, he was good. We get to see him actually make his web fluid. Granted, we kind of see it with Andrew Garfield, but it's like he borrowed it from Oscorp, which, no biggie. That's something that's never really bothered me. But we get to see we get to see Spider-Man be a nerd again. Something I love from the Tobey Maguire movies. And what I love about this movie, too, is that Spider-Man's immaturity, and Tom Holland plays it good. And I know that might be a negative for some people, but think of it like this. He was just, a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in this universe. But now he's actually playing with the big boys. He's with the big leagues, and we see him make mistakes, whether or not it was him almost blowing up the bank, taking out Del Mar's sandwich shop, or, almost killing his students, or or causing a ferry to split in half. It shows his immaturity, and I appreciate that. It's something we never really see in a lot of Spider-Man media. I mean, I think we've seen it in the 90s cartoon, but as far as like the Tobey Maguire movies and the Andrew Garfield movies, we never really see that side of Spider-Man, so I can appreciate that. And Tom Holland, even though he was not as passionate as he was, like Andrew Garfield was, he still does a really, really good job. And like I said, no disrespect to Asa Butterfield, Josh Hutcherson, who was almost Spider-Man 2, and Dylan O'Brien, but I just can't see no one else doing this Peter Parker like Tom Holland, especially with how his character has grown from here all the way to No Way Home.
Yeah, I'm really glad that they chose Tom Holland for Spider-Man. He even though he may not be as passionate, he plays the character so well.
He does, and that's just Marvel, having big ups. What's funny is that I think Sony wanted Asa Butterfield, but Marvel wanted Tom Holland. So I'm glad that Marvel kind of went in the end, or I probably mixed that up. But whoever chose Tom Holland knew what they were looking for, and I'm glad it happened.
Yep.
All right, moving on to our second positive, which is the cast feels like it's an actual high school, and they have their own unique chemistry together, and it feels like Breakfast Club. So what I mean by that is that everyone in this movie just has their own unique chemistry with each other, whether it's Ned talking to a teacher, Peter talking to a teacher, Peter and Ned, talking, or just even Flash being a bully, or Liz Allen, or, Mary Jane as, she comes to be revealed. But everyone's so unique in this movie. There's not one character I was bored with. Everyone had their own humor to them.
Yeah, I think everybody had their own chemistry with each other, which I think just brought out their characters more. It never felt awkward interactions, whether it be with a teacher or another friend. What do you think your favorite, pairing of people would be?
Oh, my favorite pairing of people? I would say Ned and Peter, because as much as I love Peter Parker and Harry Osborn, it's nice to see another best friend, And eventually in the comics, Ned Leeds does become Hobgoblin. But I don't know if they'll do it for this universe. Maybe, but we'll see. But yeah, like I said, John Watts, Marvel, and Sony did a really good job at picking who would be their high schoolers. And they did a pretty damn good job to make sure they would have chemistry, because that's the one thing you need when you're doing high school type of movies or just a cast ensemble. You need to make sure they're going to have that chemistry together.
Yeah.
And so there's never a dull moment with them. Each have their own, shine out moment, whether it's, Ned saying he's watching porn in the library while he's helping Peter, or MJ just kind of being a sarcastic student, or Liz Allen having her moments with Peter Parker, whether she likes him or not, and then Flash Thompson just being Flash Thompson. Oh, and then we get Childish Gambino as the Prowler, Aaron Davis. Oh man, that's perfect. And fun fact, Childish Gambino was the inspiration for Miles Morales in the comics. Yeah, that's something that, most people do know, whether you're a comic fan or not. But yeah, it's so cool to see him as Aaron Davis. And spoiler alert, we see him, as the Prowler finally and Across the Spiderverse. I always thought that was cool. But yeah, like I said, everyone in this cast just has their cool standout moment, and I appreciate it. Because you can easily make side characters as boring, but there wasn't one character I did not like at all. I loved all of them.
No, and even if there was a side character they hadn't explored in this one, they definitely explored it in Far From Home too.
Oh yeah, their character just got expanded Far From Home, and that's one I can't wait to talk about.
Yep.
All right, and on our third positive, Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland's chemistry. This was pretty important. I know when they were looking for Spider-Man in particular for this universe, they did test screenings with Chris Evans as Captain America, and Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man for Civil War, and just Tom Holland had that chemistry perfect with Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., and that's another thing you gotta appreciate, because you can pick the best actor, but what about their chemistry with other actors? You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the MCU, with any of the characters, chemistry is probably one of the most important things, because if it doesn't work with them personally, it just doesn't work on screen, and so that's another reason why I'm really glad they went with Tom Holland.
Oh yeah, and what's funny is that people were scared, and I was one of the people too, scared that Iron Man was going to shadow this movie, overshadow it. No, he's barely even in it, and I do appreciate him having a mentor role, especially Happy Hogan. But yeah, their on-screen chemistry and their off-screen friendship is so awesome.
Yeah, I love seeing the interactions between the two, and even though it is just one movie, you see their relationship grow throughout it, and their trust between each other, which I think is great.
And I'm going to be honest, I'm glad that it was Iron Man that was his mentor, because in the comics, I think Cap was his mentor. I believe so. I'm not too particularly sure. It's been a while since I've read up on those old comics. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, you could not pick a better chemistry between Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland, and I do appreciate that, because you could have really dropped the ball right there. And Robert Downey Jr. actually didn't take that much of a pay, I believe.
No.
Yeah, because he loves Tom Holland. He loves doing this movie with them. And, we see snippets of Iron Man, when he appears in his suit and stuff. But I'm glad they use him when he's needed, not, when he saves Peter. I mean, he does save Peter last minute in a scene, but it makes sense. He's telling Peter that you're still immature. I can't let you do these things. And that's where I love when we see the immaturity of Spider-Man, because he thinks he can do it. And look what happens. He almost gets his classmates killed when the Washington Monument almost gets blown up. Just stuff like that. And so, like I said, it's nice to have Iron Man as his first mentor instead of like someone like Nick Fury or Doctor Strange, which happens eventually.
Yeah, because I also think that this version of Tom Holland relates to Robert Downey Jr. a lot more compared to like Cap.
Oh yeah, because if this is like Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield's versions of Spider-Man, I can see him just not liking Tony at all. I think Andrew Garfield even did an interview, and they asked him, like, would your version of Spider-Man like Iron Man? He's like, no, not at all.
Wow.
He would just think he's so full of himself. And that's and in the comics, Spider-Man does not like Iron Man at all. Mm-hmm. They're not even friends or acquaintances. He just, Spider-Man just deals with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and number 4, on our positive list, the tone and atmosphere of this movie. Like I said, it's very, very Breakfast Club inspired, which is one of my favorite high school movies of all time. But you get some references to 16 Candles as well. But like I said, it's just nice to have this totally realistic, somewhat realistic atmosphere of a high school, where I'm not saying the Tobey Maguire movies didn't have a realistic atmosphere or the Andrew Garfield movies, but it's like I said, you can tell that those were adults trying to play teenagers, where in this one, they're actually teenagers, and we get to see Peter go to his classes, what it's like, the hallways, just all these students interacting, so it gives it that realistic feel.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a typical superhero movie. It feels like a high school movie with a superhero thrown in.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And like I said, they honestly could have just casted like 30-year-olds again to play teenagers, but that would have been very, very redundant and very annoying. So yeah, I'm glad that they actually got teenagers for this movie.
Yeah.
All right, and number 5 on our positive list is the soundtrack for this movie. I love this soundtrack. It goes back to a lot of 80s and 90s classic rock, and I love it.
Yeah, the soundtrack of this movie was just amazing. I even still listen to it to this day. It's just that good.
Yeah, we have the Blitz King pop song and everything. I just love it. Like I said, it's just that tone that they go for, and it gets way better as the trilogy goes on, especially in Far From Home has to be my favorite soundtrack in this trilogy.
Yeah, I have to agree.
And that's something I kind of wish that the Tobey movies and Andrew movies have. And I know it's kind of bad to compare because it's a different era. But like I said, when you do a high school movie like this, you kind of have to make it a little realistic as possible. I know it's a hero movie, but still, just a little realism can go a long way. And so I do appreciate the soundtrack. I appreciate the atmosphere. I appreciate everything about this movie. I would say that this is my 5th favorite Spider-Man movie.
Fifth favorite, sir?
Oh yeah. Which one would it fall in your ranking?
I think it would probably fall either 4 or 5.
Yeah, it's a really great movie, and just everything in this movie just makes it that good.
Yeah.
All right, and finally, on our last positive, and I'm very excited to talk about this, Michael Keaton as Vulture. Man, oh man. And funny enough, Vulture was going to be in Spider-Man 4, so they kind of took the scripts from Spider-Man 4 and incorporated it into this movie. Originally, I think John Malkovich was going to be Vulture in Spider-Man 4, not for this movie, but Michael Keaton, man. I think the only shame that I have for this movie is that we don't get to see Michael Keaton interact with Robert Downey Jr. I feel like that'd be acting gold right there.
Oh, yeah.
Those are 2 of the greatest actors right now. I would have loved to see their chemistry, just their banter together, Vulture telling Tony that you're no better than any of us, just because you're rich doesn't mean you can treat us like shit. And then Tony being like, I don't do that. Just their feud would have been cool just to see, even if it was like for a minute or 2.
Yeah, I agree. I think having their conflict in screen would have put this movie
it would have made it more personal.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And Michael Keaton, what can I say about Michael Keaton? He's fucking Batman. And fun fact, when they were doing their fight scenes, Tom Holland said that every time that they did their fight scenes, Michael Keaton would whisper, I'm Batman. And that's just so funny to imagine him saying that. But I'm so glad he came back to do this movie, because I don't see anyone else playing Vulture. And I'm very glad they never killed off his character, because that's the one thing I don't like a lot about these Spider-Man movies, that they kind of kill off their villains. They did it with, the only ones that lived were Lizard, Sandman, I guess you can say Electro. Yeah, you can say Electro. But every other Spider-Man villain, they just killed off. And it's like, well, how are you going to get a Sinister Six? But yeah, originally Michael Keaton was going to die in this movie, but I'm glad that they have his character set up in case he ever wanted to do Sinister Six. And no, we're not going to talk about the Morbius post-credit scene. I have never seen Morbius. I do not want to see it. I much rather watch paint dry and lose my leg before I watch Morbius.
I haven't watched it either, but I will say, if you want to set up a Sinister Six, this is how you do it. You don't make it like the very end of the story. You just add like a little tidbit. I think this was the post-credit scene, right?
Yeah, it was a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Oh, what I love too is that they set up Matt Gargan in this universe.
Yeah.
Scorpion himself. And he still haven't touched upon Scorpion. That's the one villain I want to see. I mean, yeah, I love Mysterio. I love Sandman. I love Green Goblin. But give me Scorpion. And it's the perfect actor. I think it's Michael Bondo, I think is his name.
Yeah.
And he was in a Breaking Bad, and he was really good in that. But yeah, we need Scorpion.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, like I said, Michael Keaton, I would give him probably a 9.10 in this movie as a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's not as good as William Dafoe as Green Goblin, but, that's like a high standard to go up to.
Compare.
Yeah, you can't compare that. But I will say this, he's the second best on-screen Spider-Man villain ever.
Yeah.
I will say that. Yeah, better than Sandman, better than Mysterio.
Yeah.
Yeah, second best at least.
Second, for me, I think he'd be 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think what I love about the villain, too, is the twist that he's actually Liz Allen's dad. When Peter goes to pick up Liz Allen at the prom, and Adrian Toomas, a.k.a. Vulture, opens the door, you literally see Peter's face go from happy to like, oh, shit. And it's so funny. I had that spoiled for me before I went to go see the movie, but still, it was still kind of a shock.
Yeah, and kind of off topic, I'm glad that they went with Liz for his first love interest rather than straight to Gwen Stacy or MJ. And I think because it just adds more to his character and just adds more to his love interest.
Yeah, because Peter Parker does have a lot of love interests in the comics, but the most well known are, Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy, so I can't really blame him. But it's nice to see people like Liz Allen. I want to see him get with Betty Brant. I know we've been introduced to Betty Brant in this trilogy and the Tobey Maguire trilogy, but we never really see him get romantic like that. And they used to be a couple, just like Felicia Hardy, Black Cat. I want to see that eventually.
Oh.
I think we'll see it in Tom Holland's new trilogy. But yeah, Michael Keaton as Vulture, man, even though you're not the best on-screen Spider-Man villain, you're the second best, easily.
Yeah.
All right, now that we're done with our positive, we only have one negative, and this is one we kind of really want to talk about. And our one and only negative is the start of the Iron Boy Jr. jokes and having too many Stark connections for the time being.
Yeah.
Now, let me just say this. I know I just said that I love how Stark was his first mentor. I can appreciate that, and I can understand that. But it's just, to me, you need to have Spider-Man have some type of independence and not literally try to be Tony Stark. And I get it, it's a young Spider-Man, he doesn't know what he wants. But there's a scene, remember the scene at the end to where Tony offers Peter to join the Avengers?
Yeah.
There's a whole press conference, and he's gonna give him the Iron Spider suit. Mm-hmm. As much as I appreciate that and like that scene, it kind of, I'm glad that Peter said no, but at the same time, in Infinity War and beyond, he tries to be Tony Stark again. It's like, dude, all that character progression just gone out the window. And at the end, when he finally gets his suit back made from Stark, I kind of wish he gave it back and made like another homemade suit that looks just like it, but without the Stark technology. And this is where a lot of people say it's Iron Boy Jr. And while I can see it, you can't really blame Tom Holland or the writing on it. They just really wanted to make Tony Stark his mentor, and that's perfectly okay. But I think he could have done it in a way to where we can see Peter accept them. And I told Izzy this too the other day, is that I kind of wish throughout this whole storyline, we could have seen Peter just slowly see Stark as someone else, as not his mentor anymore. I mean, I guess you can say it, after Endgame, but even then, I just always felt like his character always relied on Stark technology, and it was just kind of annoying.
Yeah, and I kind of wish Stark realized, as his mentor, to take a step back and just give him the space that he needs to become his own hero, not just guide him through the whole way.
Yeah, and what bothered me in this movie, too, was that I guess Tony was listening to Peter when Peter told him about Vulture and everyone else and all the arms dealers. And then the fairy scene to where Peter kind of fucks up and makes a fairy split in half. And Tony straight up tells him, I listened to you. Who do you think called the FBI? Well, why didn't you tell Peter that?
Yeah.
You could have just told Peter that. And, there's just a lot of miscommunication in this movie. But that's one of the examples to where what Izzy just said, Tony should have taken a step back and told Peter, like, look, I get you what you want to do. You're trying to do the best. But I'm telling you this right now. I already called the FBI. I know that you want to get that arms dealer. For anyone that says, oh, how is Tony supposed to know? Come on, Tony's going to know. If he called the FBI to arrest Adrian, don't you think he would have told Peter or known that Peter would have gone?
Yeah.
So that's just, it's just a nitpick. But like I said, this is the start of the Iron Boy Jr., and it gets kind of annoying after a while.
Yeah. And I think it wouldn't be as bad if they just kept everything to this movie and kind of let him go in the next one.
Yeah.
But what happens is that they don't, and so that's why the memes and the joke continues.
Yeah, like when we eventually review Infinity War and Endgame, God, I'm not looking forward to reviewing the whole MCU. That's gonna take a lot of our time. I mean, we're excited, but still, we gotta make time for that dedication. But like in Infinity War, he wants to be like Tony again. And then in Endgame too, because Tony dies. And then Far From Home, he still wants to be Tony. It's like, bro, let it go.
Yeah, it doesn't... He should have... I think eventually by Far From Home, Tom should have realized that he needs to take a step back. But he doesn't. And I think that's kind of like where it falls. But I am glad they've kind of started moving in the right direction.
Yeah, like I said, we won't talk a lot what we mean a lot more until we get to Far From Home next week. Alright guys, that's going to do it with our film review of Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yep.
Like we said, good movie, good start for the Spider-Man MCU version. He has a lot to learn, but I can't wait to cover that next week. And as always, take care of others, take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Peace out, everyone.
Bye guys!